But hi there, we've got a very exciting panel today all about injecting the human into internal comms and fueling authenticity, hopefully something that we're all super passionate about. But to get started, obviously, I've got to introduce this killer panel here today. So here's everybody's faces. We're all on camera. Patrick's here with us in the studio. And we've got Becca and Tiffin joining us from afar. But I'm going to hand over to them to really introduce themselves. I'm going to say in 30 seconds and what you're excited about today. So Becca, can we start with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name is Becca DuPont, and I am the group head of people experience at JD Sports. So basically, I look over all things communication and engagement here based in the UK and in Europe, but then kind of even wider across our 90,000 colleagues, across 4,500 stores across the world. I started my career over 10 years ago in agency PR and then made the shift over to the corporate world pretty quickly into my career, and have been living and loving the sneaker or trainer world because I'm now based in the UK ever since. And so I'm really, really excited about today because I think these are my two biggest or favorite topics is authenticity and transparency and communication. So looking forward to today.
Thanks for coming, Becca. I know when we asked and we said we were talking about this, you were like, yes, I'm in. So thank you for joining. And Tiffin, over to you with a enviable background. Is that real?
Yes, it is real. I'm Tiffin Jernston. I'm live from Venice. I've been in communications for over 25 years, and my father was also in communications, so it's been in the family.
In the blood?
Yes, yeah. And I've been in the fashion industry. So I've worked with all the big American brands, Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger. I've also worked at the parent company level, so very focused on corporate internal comms. So PVH in my last role was Neiman Marcus Group, that we just successfully did an acquisition to our biggest competitor. So very, very fascinating experience.
Yeah,
And I relaunched my consulting business. So I'm a big comms nerd.
I think that's a great title to bring you here today.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tiffin. And yes, that background is real. And I can't believe when you were like, I'm in Venice. It's like a postcard. So thank you so much for joining us while I know you're on your travels with your children as well. So thank you. And
Yeah.
Patrick, who's made it here to Blink HQ. Hi.
I didn't have to fly with EasyJet to get to London from Luton
I know
either.
you wish you had.
Yeah, half expecting a mermaid to dive out behind Tiffin as well. Very jealous of the background. Yes,
That's what I collect. I can't believe you just said that. I collect mermaids. So yes.
It will happen. It's a magic place.
Absolutely.
Totally. Patrick Fox. So I've been working in internal comms 15 years. I'm currently with EasyJet, but spent a third of that 15 years in National Grid. I've been in the charity sector for a while, but mostly transport and utilities, save for a short period working with Avon Cosmetics. Ding dong, I was an Avon lady for a little time, but currently with EasyJet. 18,000 employees, 90% of those up in the air, serving customers all over Europe. Really, really great place to work. And yeah, totally excited to be here to talk about the awesome stuff that our people do every day at EasyJet. So
thank you, Patrick. And I think hopefully you all agree, everyone that's joined us today, we've got such a huge, span of experience and lots of different hats from our speakers. So I'm really hoping you're all going to bring a slightly different perspective. I'm Georgie from Blink. I'm your moderator today. Don't worry, you won't hear much from me. But just a bit of housekeeping to get us started. The chat is open. Hopefully lots of you can see that. Please be active in the chat. It's great in these events that we can't actually hear from you because obviously you're all muted, but please let us know what you think in terms of our conversation. Thank you for all saying hello and where you're from. But this is also such a great community. So please share, if you've got stories, examples of also what our panelists are going through and talking through, then let us know. There's also a Q&A function, so your questions don't get lost in the chat. Please use that if you've got a question for any of us or directed at our panel or someone specifically on the panel. We'll either try and get to it throughout, but we've got an official Q&A section at the end, as well. So is that all my housekeeping? Yes, I think it is. Just looking at my official notes. So before we get started onto the good stuff, No Blink event is complete without a bit of force fun, okay? And all of you joining, I think hopefully you're all used to a bit of force fun because sometimes we have to wheel it out for a bit of engagement. So I asked the panelists today for some homework and I said, please, can you come along with a drawing? No AI generated images. We're talking human, authentic. So this is rough and ready stuff, paper, pencil, biro, whatever. And I asked our panelists to draw something that represents employee engagement. So I would like you guys to unveil your drawings. I haven't seen these, and I'd like to explain why you've drawn that. So Tiffin, can I come to you first?
Absolutely. So my drawing, which is what I delegated to, which I want every communicator to delegate any admin, is big C communications versus little c communications. And we also called out Blink. And it's on a restaurant that we were just at today. We're tagging Blink. But I was given this advice many years ago. And it was really when I switched into corporate communications. When I was in PR working for founding designers like Ralph Lauren and Tommy Hilfiger, they get communications. They don't need a pitch. It was at the corporate level and parent company level where it was more difficult. And I had a friend tell me, you are a big C communications person and everyone else around you are little C's. So don't get distracted by little c communications. So the analogy is that I use all the time is I cook at home. I'm not a chef. I'm actually awful. I have to set up a house. That doesn't make me a designer. I have to sign legal agreements because I just did a mortgage or I rented a house. That doesn't make me big L legal. So you hear from me this entire time that I really want to empower everybody. You guys are all communicators and you're big C communicators. So you don't have to step down. You don't have to influence. I really hate that word in communications. You're not influencing. You are an expert. You are authoritative and you should be directing.
Tiffin, I love that. And you did have some help, didn't you? I heard your children helped with your drawing, so thank you.
They did. I delegate because a lot of communicators, because we're so in the service industry, we will be like, oh, I'll do that. I'll do that because we want to build a bridge. And that's my other advice. You got to be really careful about what bridge you're building. If it's admin, like you got to delegate it out. And so I'm not being disrespectful to your task, but I don't draw. So I'm like, I will give it to my 9-year-old. And I directed her.
There you go. Thank you. I love that. And I think there's been lots of heart reactions as well to your drawing. So you've set the bar quite high there, Tiffin. Becca, can I come to you next?
Absolutely. So I have drawn, it is a bottle
Isn't it
of
tiny?
glue. It's a bottle of glue.
Okay, a perfectly formed small bottle of glue.
Yes.
Love it.
Because I think that communications, engagement, kind of that whole sector is truly the glue that brings all organizations together. Without it, everything else falls apart, whether you're pushing an initiative, whether you need the buy-in of other people, if you want people to stay at your organization, if you don't have any of that, truly everything falls apart. And so, especially even when you're thinking about big objectives and a company strategy, right? You need that glue to make sure everybody is doing the right thing and they're all working together. So
I love it. Becca, thank you. And I really appreciate the detail on the lid of the glue.
yeah, I had to make it hyper realistic, of course.
Thank you so much. I was like, whoa, is that really glue? Great drawing, thank you. And Patrick, coming to you live.
I've done a drawing in my Blink notepad, which I did on the train on the way here. But mine is I'm feeling the love. It's how close shall I go? There we go.
There we go.
We have a love heart and we have 3 people and some dotted lines between them. So
No
airplanes. No aircraft today. But for me, it's all about, I think we play a huge role in the easy to join and wrench to leave experience. So you want people to join your organization and never want to leave. And that for me is kind of helping people feel really connected and just loving what they do so that they can't even imagine leaving the organization that they're in. So, and we play such a huge role in making that happen.
Definitely. And I feel like you need people with like all sorts of equipment on them, don't they?
Yeah, we'll pop a high
Enable that.
vis
Yeah, exactly.
on some of those.
Definitely. Well, thank you all so much for embracing that. And I really hope as well later maybe you could take a photo, put that on LinkedIn, and all of you joining in. I would love to know what your drawings would be. Would you be drawing, exceptional work like the glue pot? Would you be drawing different types of communicators, or would you be showing the love and the team that it takes? I would love to know what you'd all be drawing as well. But force one over for now. Don't worry, there'll be some more. There'll be some more later. Everyone's like, oh, thank goodness, please get on with this webinar. But look, we're going to get into it, and there's a couple of themes we've talked about as a panel that we wanted to bring up today. And the first one is really getting into like this idea of like this trust factor. We know, we're in this digital age, right? There's so much noise. I've got my first fun fact of the day that the average person receives 121 business emails per day and switches between tools and tabs nearly 1,200 times a day. Well, that's crazy, right? I'm definitely that person. But internal comms and us as communicators or in engagement teams, it means we're like fighting against this in terms of people's noise and sort of busy days. And people don't want more information necessarily. They want more meaningful information or meaningful connections. So my first question of the day to the panel is, in this era of information overload, what role really can authenticity play? Who should I go to first? Tiffin, can I go to you first?
I thought you were going to say Patrick, because with EasyJet, it's really air traffic control. I use that analogy all the time. It is literally our jobs to tell people we're not sending a million messages today. We are in the role of prioritizing messages. So you have to have the guts, and not even the guts, you just have to have, again, back to being authoritative. You have to say, we know everything that's going on in the organization, and your message doesn't fit today. Your message will fit in a newsletter. Your message will fit in a town hall. Your message will be appropriate for a global to everybody. But, your job to identify, clarify, and frankly, demand. And you're going to hear me again over and over and over again. I think a lot of communicators have been very passive in their jobs, and you need to take the same, professionalism that every other department that you work with. It's not subjective. You know what you're doing. You know what's right. And frankly, the communicators, you're the one that actually knows everything that's happening. So you should really have the confidence and the clarity. And sometimes I think communicators, because we are so busy, because we are dealing with every aspect of the company, you also might need to give some context. And I think sometimes you might forget that, but just, one of your internal partners, just give some context. We have 10 breaking news that's happening today. So your message needs to go in another route.
Definitely. And I think as well, it's doing that in the right way and getting the tone and the authentic human element into that. Patrick, what do you think? Sadly, Tiffin's already taken your air traffic control analogy.
I'm going to add to it. I think the air traffic control piece is huge, and Liv in my team is our resident air traffic controller, and she works incredibly hard to get us into a space where we know what's going on in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, 7 months out even, so we can start to really plan and be proactive about where we as a team spend our time. Occasionally, though, you do have the odd emergency landing, and we have to be prepared for that. So that's me adding to the air traffic control piece, and spending the time to really get your house in order helps us to really manage when things do need to go out with a bit of urgency that you can prepare for it.
Yeah.
I think the other side of it as well is, you're not just competing against other messages in your organization, the 10 breaking news pieces a day. You've got BBC News pinging on your phone. You have notifications on your Facebook or your Instagram. You're getting reminders to go and look at people on TikTok, and you're getting your personal messages, or you're getting emails and marketing through your own personal emails every day. So there's a constant competition to win a moment, not just in your own organization. So absolutely
couldn't agree more. And I think sometimes being able to snooze things as well, like as end users, are really important important, and when do you start dialing into the right ones? And it's probably comes from a place of when you trust that source, isn't it? That's when you're dialing in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Becca, what's your take on this in terms of information overload and trying to be engaging and a good communicator when there's a lot going on in this, you know, noisy age?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have an airline pun for all of you, but I'll find a way to sneak in a sneaker one at some point in this conversation.
Sneak is close enough, so sneak away.
Yes, exactly. You know, for me, I think alongside, and I know this is a topic we'll touch on today too, is just as, you know, authentic we have to be really clear, right? And it's not just about pushing through the noise, but it's when we're able to push through the noise, how are we able to have that concise, and it's my favorite word of the day, which is a transparent message, right? And I think that's how you cut through a lot of that clutter. And I think, you know, in my world, it's making sure too that if you don't mind if I shift to transparency just a little bit, it really is that ability of how your leadership and how your other stakeholders understand what transparency really means. And I think that's where we meet a lot of roadblocks, right? Because when you say that in a room full of some of your most senior executives, they go, well, we don't want to talk about this specific sales number, or we don't want to bring up, you know, this topic, it's too in the weeds. And for us, it's like, no, we're not telling you to share everything. We're telling you just to be open about what we're able to share at this current moment, because the more you hide, the more roadblocks you're going to put up, and everyone's going to have to work even harder to get that message out, or that people are going to get that understanding. And I think too, especially in the workforce that I deal with on a daily basis with Gen Z, they are quick to call out when something seems fake, when it's not authentic, and when it doesn't feel like it's the truth. And so if you lose them from the jump, you're losing them entirely. So that's why it's so critical right from the beginning that you're able to be really clear with them.
Definitely. And I think getting that balance right is challenging. And, you know, Becca, you spoke to that like core demographic you've got in your workforce. They're going to call out, this is a load of rubbish, or why aren't we hearing about this? Why aren't we hearing about that? Patrick, what's your take on this in terms of being transparent, sharing too much, want to involve people, different types of demographics in the workforce? When's overshare, when's revealing too much? How do you sort of play that?
I think there's two parts to it. There's one which is knowing who's delivering the message. I think transparency comes from an individual, not a faceless account or entity.
Yeah.
I think, you know, pushing something from internal comms versus an individual who probably sits more locally is a good start.
Yeah, face to somebody helps with that trust piece, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the other side of it is making the message really relevant to that group. I think that in itself helps to develop transparency. I think if you're going too over the top in an area where they actually need the weeds, or going too much into the weeds in an area where actually it doesn't impact them and they don't care, I think you start to lose that trust on the basis that you're demonstrating that you don't really understand that group of people.
Definitely. And Tiffin, how about you? Obviously, I know you've got a plethora of experience more in the fashion industry, but whether that's a brand level or group level, how have you tackled that from a needing to be transparent? Obviously, especially with a big sort of merger acquisition situation, it's not necessarily the light-hearted, fun type of communication you'd want to be sending out. How do you make sure you get the tone right with the transparency versus the right people, right message, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, just what the other guys just said. I mean, that's literally what you do. Even in a high level, high complex merger, with so much legality and, you know, board investor requirements. And you just have to do your best, you know, and as a communicator, again, I'm going to go back to my theme, you have to advocate for the people. And it's not just, I know this is an internal comms focused call, but it also is all stakeholder groups. It's with your press, it's with your board members. I mean, it's really everybody. And what we try to do, and I'm not saying it was the best of the best, but we just try to again, go back to context. We can't share. I mean, just telling people this is where we're at. You know what I mean? Like we can't share these details yet because of the legal requirement. So we just made sure that we stopped for a second and just had those two sentences to explain to the larger organization.
Yeah.
I know it feels weird. You feel like we should be telling you, but we literally can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in many examples where it's leaked to press. So it's gasoline from an internal comms perspective. So when that happens, and I have no doubt people on this call have dealt with this, I'm very diligent. I actually came from press background like Becca did. That is innately my background. But when I learned internal comms, I don't breathe. I do not communicate until we have messaged to the C-suite, to leadership, and then to the broader communicators. And then I really go to town on my press contacts. So I'm the one that actually tells the press, if you run this before my internal comms, you're not going to get anything from me and you're going to feel it. And I'm also going to call your boss. So I'm someone that gets very, very strong, and I educate the media that in this day and world with all of the platforms and social media, you're not the one to break news. And if you think you're going to do that, you're not going to get other news. And I will take it somewhere else. And frankly, I'll break it on my own channels because I don't really need you like I needed you 20 years ago. So
Pippin,
I
you're
want
really channeling that big
yeah,
C energy. I'm here for it.
so I just want to encourage everyone, internal comms is the most important stakeholder group. If you don't have your employees understanding, navigating these weird waters that really not anyone understands, and that's kind of the world that we live in now, frankly. It's all these anomalies. It's very strange. If you're not prioritizing your employees, then you cannot, I don't even know how you're prioritizing your stakeholders groups, the board, the investors, the press. And at the end of the day, it's all about the consumers, because if the consumer doesn't understand, then none of us have jobs. But I truly believe it starts with internal comms, but you need to have a communications department that frankly is, again, authoritative and directive and telling people, no, we're not going to let that press person run it because they just got a scoop. We're going to squash it, and we're going to, we're going to share it to our employees first.
Oh, did I lose Tippin? Oh,
And back to when you can't, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Benis, we lost you, but you're back. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm very passionate about this, but I think it's a communicator's job to be advocating and making the noise that we're not going to let a reporter bully us. We're not going to let, legal tell us, like, employees are first.
Yeah.
And we might not be able to give them all the facts, but we should take the time to give a couple sentences or a paragraph on why we can't give them the facts. And then you get it.
Exactly. And we've, I think there's been some great comments here in the chat. Owen, is like, you can't always be, completely transparent, but we can be honest about that. And again, I think that's the human element. We know that you need an update and we can't give you an update. And so that's the update, even that approach, is being really human, and people want that. So thank you, Owen. So my next topic of conversation, team, is all around understanding the tone, getting the tone right. But before we get into that, I've got a little poll. Hopefully the team behind the scenes launch poll. Here we go. I'd love to know what are your, biggest comms challenges right now, all of you that have dialed in, and hopefully we're going to be covering it. But tone really is everything. I think you can say a lot of things. You could say the same thing maybe in 5 different ways, and maybe only one of those would land, or maybe all 5 of them will land, but all with different groups. And Becca, you specifically spoke to your Gen Z workforce that you've got, and people, especially that audience, are increasingly expecting company comms to mirror the same type of experience, tone, format that they have in their consumer lives. So what is great at catching people's attention? How can you strike the balance? Because you are still in an organization, you need to represent that brand. How are you getting that message right and still being able to sort of cut through with your workers?
Yeah, I think it's the big 3 tenets of the right message at the right place at the right time. That's something that I preach to my team, and making sure that they're always thinking about that. But I think our wider business as well, especially too, because that's what this next workforce cares about, right? They want to at least have it be relevant. They want it to be right, but they also want to feel like they're a part of the conversation as well, right? So in some ways, it's how are we giving them an opportunity to either provide feedback, to engage with it, to be able to comment on it, to share maybe if we haven't hit the right note. I think that's a huge piece of that sort of revolving feedback, where I think in comms of the past, it's kind of just pushing it out, being like, this is what it is. But what I try and do is coach leaders as much as possible to say, listen, sometimes we're allowed to say, we didn't get that right. And that's that authenticity piece coming back
Yes.
in. So that way they feel like they're a part of it. But to your point, at the end of the day, we're still a business, right? Like we still, listen, email's not going away, right? That's not going away in some respects, because there are some things that are still relevant for that. I can't send a TikTok about, a merger update, or I can't necessarily do that in some regards, right? I think there are still some guardrails, and I think it is leaning into what this new generation wants and finding where it is appropriate to have user generated content, or having our CEO, get on his phone and be like, hey, I'm here at, this location interacting with these employees. Here's an update. But I think there are still these areas where I think we're allowed to push back and educate the workforce, no matter what generation they're from, to say, but there's still some business as usual going. So it's finding those pockets that feel appropriate, but also as relevant as possible for them. If we're not evolving with our workforce, no one's going to come work with us, right? So it's a little bit of give and take, I would say, in kind of both of those respects.
Couldn't agree more. And I'm very excited to see maybe if the JD team are going to tackle important business updates via TikTok. I will look out for that.
Hopefully it won't be me. If you see me doing the TikTok, something has gone wrong, and please message me on LinkedIn to see if everything is okay.
Yeah, we'll do a well-being check with Becca if that's the case.
I like to jump in. I'm seeing a lot of chats on resources. I really, again, want to encourage communicators. We are the best function to create resources. We're not marketing. Marketing has a finite budget, and that's why I love communications. When the market is down, marketers get fired. Communicators, not that we don't get impacted sometimes, but we're the ones can be like, I can do a comms plan for $1 million, and I can do one for 0. So I would just really encourage everyone. It goes back to I think there's a lot of passiveness that has been happening with communicators. You gotta stand your ground. You gotta be resourceful. And now you have AI tools that make it even easier. And not that they can do your job, but it's just being crafty about it. And I will tell you, I'm someone in my background, if you ask anyone, I've never had a big budget. Literally, all my brands sound very, very luxury and very fabulous. None of them had budget. And I was always tasked to transform. So I never had the right people. I never had enough staff, but we try to find new ways to cut through the noise and make impact. So anyone that's feeling like you don't have resources, I would actually challenge you, why don't you rethink what the resources are? Why don't you rethink, is it your team? Do you want to buddy up with a couple other departments? Be the one to say, hey, none of us have money. And I've done that a bunch of my jobs. No one had money. And so that was my pitch. I was like, none of us have money. So what are we going to do to still make impact? Because we're not going to just sit here and let an opportunity not go anywhere. So again, I really want to empower communicators on this call. It is up to you. Don't wait for people. Don't wait for the budget. Don't wait for someone to tell you, oh, it's okay to do it. You do it. That's the power of communications.
Yeah, get creative. I completely agree. Definitely been a team of one myself. So I think while it's tough, there was also amazing community out there. I think even just seeing how people interact on these type of events, it's such an incredible community. So you have outside support resource. But Tiffin, I'm loving your real empowering the audience today. So thanks for the vibe. We've also had a comment here off the back of Becca, specifically talking about evolving with the workforce, and it's not always about this obviously rise of the new generation coming up. And Patrick, back to the question about getting the tone right and landing with it feeling personal yet professional. And obviously you are not just communicating with this uprising sort of Gen Z workforce. I'm assuming you've got, having been on many at EasyJet like myself, you've got a whole plethora of generations in your sort of especially frontline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a mixture of a number of things that we've already talked about.
Yeah.
So right message, right place, right time.
Yeah.
the big C, so not communicating for the sake of communicating and just trying to fill the noise, because just because we can't hear it doesn't mean that there is that there isn't noise in the organization already coming from a different angle, whether it be business updates that we're not in control of or what have you. But I think a big thing for me is just really knowing your audience and what their needs are. That one size absolutely isn't going to fit all. A TikTok style video will have to go with some messaging alongside it that maybe can be enjoyed by a different type of downloader, I suppose. And I think another key part of that is just having the advocacy, the agency rather, to actually strip stuff away. It's really, really important. I know when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, I talked about my absolute obsession with interior design masters at the moment.
That'll be a separate session.
Yeah, strip stuff away. Fill the room with your vision, and then pull the things out that you don't think are necessary, knowing that audience. But unless you're completely obsessed about your audience and you know them inside out and you know what their wants and needs are, and you know the people who know those people as well, you're going to really struggle to make the connection, I think.
And how do you really communicate authentically if actually you don't know that audience? Yeah,
absolutely. And
can I ask it, our panelists, how are you knowing your audience? What does that look like? Becca, I know you've obviously got a team and I've seen them out and about. But talk me through what that looks like.
I think we're really lucky that like 90% of our workforce are our customers, and we know a lot about our customers, right? And what they want, what they feel, what they expect. And so I think that's been a huge piece of it. We also talk to our employees. We are a huge advocate of engagement surveys, and I'm a big engagement survey believer. I know that there are a lot of people who question the validity of them or how you utilize them or what you do, but I'm one of those like really corny people that's like, no, I read every response, and like I want to know and understand, and being able not just to take feedback just for the sake of taking feedback, but what do you do as an action on the the heels of that? And that's that critical piece for that. So I think we're really lucky in our industry and with our company that we have that ability. But if you don't, and you don't have that luxury, get out there, talk to your employees. I think we keep talking about we're the ones in the room who get to help control a lot of this narrative and a lot of these things. Like, just talk to your colleagues, ask them, see what's working, what do they expect to see, what do they want to see. And I think too, one other person in the comments dropped in about, well, what about those of us who aren't a part of Gen Z? I myself am not a Gen Zer. I am a millennial, and so I am not a part of that. And so while I'm not far off, I think it's about balance, right? Like, no, we're not forgetting about I'm going to put this in quotes, older employees or the different generations. I think it's just us being able to be adaptable of, if we're not moving forward, we're just not really thinking about, eventually we're all going to be phased out, right? Like we will, and we want to make sure that we have the right tools to support them, but also what can we maintain that still works for our current workforce that isn't new, that is working maybe for both, but also too, encouraging people who have been with our business for a long time. Do you want to try something new? Do you want to have a stretch here? Do you want to learn about a new technology? We're giving you the resource. So I think that's a bit too of being open to saying, this just looks different, but it's going to be great. And it's going to increase your ability to do your job even better. So it's not about catering better to one. It's just, how do we make it better for all of us in just different ways?
We've also been talking about this in a different way for a number of years. Right. So maybe 10 years ago, we were talking about how do we make our content more accessible, right? So we moved from 500 or 1,000 words on an intranet to a 10-minute video. And all we're doing is making the video a little bit shorter and shorter over the years. So now we're going for, we've got 30 seconds. Let's do a 30-second reel. So
8 seconds, isn't it? Or less than that, isn't it? To get someone's attention. Yeah.
So we've been having this conversation for a decade, just in a different format.
Yeah. Also, I'm here for the Gen X crowd. We've got Whitney, Rhonda. Don't forget Gen X. Thank you. We don't worry. Absolutely. Thank you all so much, everybody who's dialing in on the chat and getting involved with the conversation. I think it's great to hear. We've also got some people empathizing with teams of one. Yes, you are survivors, and well done. I'm here for it. Tiffin, we're losing you off camera because you're active in the chat. Now you're back. How about you, from your perspective, in terms of getting this tone right versus professionalism? I feel like you live from Venice.
I went off because of I saw a lot of the chat. I come from very big companies, but there was no resources and no team members. So
Yeah.
I've had 3 experiences where I was literally the only person. And they came from brands that you thought would have a lot more. So you just have to start. And it's that old saying, if you build it, they will come. And I have seen that at every job that I've had. And I think I've had, I mean, I've never been counted, but I don't know, like 10. I'm someone that likes to move around. So again, I come from backgrounds with no resources, no budget, and truly lack of communication experience,
Hmm.
unless I work for the founding designer that was egomaniacs and they got it. But other than that, like they didn't. So I just want to encourage all of you. It's why I like communications and it didn't cross over to marketing. We don't need a lot of dollars to do our jobs. We really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And that's really the power. And so I've gone through many recessions. I've gone through COVID. I've gone through, I mean, we're retail. So it's just like,
Yeah.
it's a nice to have and a must have. So we get dinged and, budgets get slashed and headcount gets slashed. And that's the power of communications. And I
Yeah.
think the tone is, and I was answering some people, you just have to go back to your partners and go, that's your jargon. Like no one gets it. So I go back to what I said at the beginning of this call. You have to be directive. You have to be authoritative. You can't be like, hi, I want to make friends with you, department head. You have to say, we have a job to do. We need this communication message. I don't really understand it. So you have to
Mm.
break it down to me. And I always do that approach. I just say, dumb it down for me. So I don't get it. Hi, finance, CFO, don't get it. Dumb it down. Hi,
Yeah.
head of IT. We're rolling out all these systems that are changing everyone's lives. Don't get it. Dumb it down for me. I'm
Mm.
not afraid to say, I don't get it. And
Yeah,
I
because if
think
you're saying that, probably somebody on the other end of the communication was probably feeling the same. So,
well, it's the entire company and
yeah.
also press. And I mean, I do communications for all stakeholder groups. So no one gets it. Board members don't get it. Like I have to get involved in board decks because there's too much jargon in there. So
Yeah.
the board doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Investors, I've done investor communications. That's not my responsibility, but I'm helping the IR team with the bigger picture. So
Yeah.
again, I want to empower everyone. Just tell them, dumb it down.
Yeah.
Like
It's
we
so
don't,
good. I think
yeah,
the chat, everyone is chipping in. Obviously, everyone's got their own phrases. They're obviously like
yeah,
pushing back to stakeholders with Marie, you're saying, talk to me like I'm second grade. Yes.
yeah. I like speaking
If-
crayon. I love that one. I've actually heard it twice and I really want to remember it because I
So
really
good.
love that one. But
Yeah.
I'm just not afraid to just say, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I'm in the C-suite and I have been for a while. I have no problem with literally 35 people in a room. I literally will still say, I literally don't get what you guys are saying. What are you trying to do? I
Yeah,
don't
no,
get it.
it is so true. And is it Steve who said that if we don't get it, how do we help other people
Exactly.
get it? And
Exactly.
I want to ask the panel as well, with this exact scenario, and again, this is a really important point around the authenticity. Say you've got a CFO or somebody in legal, or someone who's speaking in their corporate language or their department's language, and they're trying to communicate with you. How do you navigate factoring in these specialisms that also need to communicate while getting the tone right, while also making sure they show up authentically? I've had coffee, not alcohol, authentically. But Becca, how do you navigate that if you've got, department heads or stakeholders coming to you with their own, whether it's corporate jargon or whether it's something more specialist, how are you still making sure it's an authentic communication?
Yeah, our role is always about coming in and reminding people about the bigger picture, right? Because I think everybody else is really, really keen and on being really niche and staying in on their lane. And of course, like they're going to get tunnel vision of like, well, we have to say it like this, or if we don't mention this, like they won't get it. But in our mind, as we've kind of said, it's like you're the only ones who care about that maybe specific phrasing. So for us, it's just making sure that we remind them about who our audience is, and we remind them about what the goal of the message is. And remember that if we talk about a topic in a specific way, think about how that impact will be. So if we go with your messaging of, jargon or something that's not authentic, and we send it out and we get the feedback, I don't understand. What does this mean for me? What's my call to action? What we could have done in one message, we may now have to do in 3 or 4 messages. And that goes back to that topic at the beginning of, if we're pinging people all the time and we're trying to cut through all of this stuff, again, right message, right place, right time, and making it as concise as possible. But our role is to be the ones in the room to say, hey, hold on, let's take a step back. Let's look at it 30,000 feet on a plane. But let's take another look and make sure that we're positioning this in the best way. We've got to have the ability to say that in the room and cut it off right from the start.
Totally agree. And I think we're on our 4th airplane pun of the day. So that's exciting. Patrick, what's your take on this?
I think it comes back to having good relationships with your stakeholders and being able to cut through the noise and tell them that the way you've positioned this, people don't care. Again, you're competing with other messages and information, right? So I think it starts from, people probably won't care about this, but how can we turn it into something that they will care about? What's the angle for this particular audience? Who's the person who can really land that message for you in that space?
In the right way.
Again, just strip down the noise. I will tell you though, the one thing that I absolutely despise is that when you've done a piece of work, right, you've gone through that experience with someone, and then they tell you, oh, I've just chucked your words into ChatGPT, can you publish this instead? I love when that happens, because all of that feeling and emotion that you put into a piece of work is stripped out by the soulless generative AI.
It's also illegal, so I would just throw that back at them, unless they have, and very few companies have their own internal chat GPT function. So I also would just throw that right back at them and be like, let me loop in legal to ensure that was correct.
Wow, Tiffin is a big C energy coming from you today.
We're a big C.
So true. And I think as well, it's for those people trying to communicate, they think their message is the most important. And that's, sometimes people have these blinkers on, this is my message, this is my message. It's so true. So I'm just conscious of time. We're flying through the time here. The next sort of theme that I'd like to get onto is really this idea of storytelling. I feel like we've probably focused our conversation to date in the last 40 minutes on more of the tone, the transparency, the approach. But I really want to get into storytelling and user-generated content, literally one of my favorite phrases because we use it so much at Blink. I want everybody here is a content creator, has been a huge game changer, right? Especially for, consumer-facing brands. We've got some incredible brands here in the UK who I'm obsessed with on social media. I'm sure everybody's got a favorite brand that they follow as a consumer, and they're getting their employees to generate content. And we know it's been a game changer. But how can we use this as communicators internally to spur on better human connection and more authentic comms? Are you all using or tapping into user-generated content? Are you still working from a corporate function? Are you seeing that being a successful method? Patrick, you're giving me the eye like,
it's a bit of both. We're trying, and I mean our social team, EasyJet social team, if you ever want to see some fantastic external social content, get onto EasyJet social channels. They are stellar, and our social team do a fantastic job of bringing our people into some of the big moments that we talk about, whether it be Eurovision or launching new products or destinations. They do a fantastic job, and as an internal comms team, we have a huge challenge to make sure that we do just as good a job. We're not great. I think we could definitely get better, and my team certainly know that we could always improve on that. But I think the key bit is where there are opportunities to tell the story through the lens of your people, either encourage them to contribute and create it themselves, or get out there and film them. I spent this morning in an airport talking to members of staff about a new app which is going to help our ground crew teams to support customers on the ground in a much quicker fashion than the way that they've been doing for the last 30 years. And the best way to tell it is not writing 150 words. It's getting out there and creating a short clip from the mouths of the people using it. So,
So you're launching a new piece of tech,
yeah,
and you filmed people who are going to be using it.
already
to launch
using it. Yeah, already using it, loving it, seeing the benefits.
Yeah.
An authentic number of voices, not just one, but a number of people who absolutely love it. A short 30-second video, that could have been 400 words. Imagine that. And all it took was a morning in an airport. It's fine.
Helps when you're based at an airport. Yeah,
it does a little bit easier when you're closer to the scene. Yeah.
So true. Becca, how about you from JD Group's perspective?
Yeah, I think going back to what I said earlier, that our consumers and our customers are our employees, and our employees are our customers and our consumers. And a lot of them are really at the heart of everything that we do. And, I think it again adds that layer of validity, but it kind of gives you that thumbs up of the program or the topic or the whatever it is that you're talking about is being accepted, right? It's being encouraged. If you can get, you want to see a note from CorpCom come out, or that is laden with like a message from the CEO or something else, but they really want to know, but what you're telling me true? Is what you're telling me actually like aligning to us as an organization and our values? And so once you throw an employee in there who can talk about it, I think a big thing for us is development, right? And how we're growing our people. I could send a really well-crafted email about our development programs and why they're amazing, but why can't I have an employee tell you what their career journey was and why it was so impactful to them in 45 seconds, right? Or we want to have this specific job opening. Well, why don't we interview people who are in that department, push it out, and people go, oh my gosh, I can see myself doing that. So I think it just really adds that extra layer that makes it feel more real and more attainable, whatever the message or the program might be.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
We've actually had a good question come in on the chat from Jenny. Hope you don't mind me sharing, Jenny, which is, what's if you have a company of people who point blank refuse to do anything on video? Panelists, what do you think? How are you getting people on video? Or maybe it's not.
You make them. You make them do it. And you start with one or two. And don't forget that, especially if we're talking from a leadership standpoint, from a leadership point of view, they're competitive. So if you get one or two, you'll get at least 3 or 4 more.
Literally the model of social proof, isn't it? People start.
Yeah, but then when you're looking at when you identify other just different levels in the organization, it inspires other people that they can too. So again, I've been at companies where no one be on video because it was fashion and they're just used to having models to be the visual. So no one even wanted to like go there.
Yeah.
And so we really had every company I've been at, I had to break all that down. It's like, it doesn't matter from an internal comms perspective, which now is external because you have LinkedIn and you have social media. And then I do internal comms plans and I get press to cover it. So, you just have to educate people. And I go back to what I said earlier. You just start small. If you build it, it will grow. It will come, and people get inspired by other people.
Definitely. I've actually got, I've only had 2 fun facts of the day. My second fun fact is that this is a sort of LinkedIn workplace report that they've done that says employees are 75% more likely to watch a video from a co-worker than from a leader. So it's not just getting leaders on video, it's co-workers. And I know you've used that in your example. That is a phenomenal stat. You'd think a lot of the time people want to hear from their leaders and have their leaders involved, but it's their co-workers. Becca, I see.
But that's why you need your legal partners, because
we've lost Venice. Tiffany, come back.
You're using my oh, can you hear me?
You're back, but
can you hear me now?
I know you were mid, delivery.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I was saying you need your legal partners. You need your legal partners because employees also have gotten smarter and have said, you're using my likeliness on behalf of the company. I'm not getting paid like you're paying a brand ambassador. So you really need, again, you need your internal partners. You need the legal, you need HR, you need the language when someone commits to these type of stories, or even photos, even group photos. Because we're in an era now where people are like, well, that's not fair. I should have gotten something for that. Or I've had direct experience, especially with LGBTQ for many years with pride marches around the globe. And we were using a shot and we're using an associate as a hero shot. And we're not thinking it from a brand perspective. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden the associate's like, I don't want to be the face of this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these are all the things that it shouldn't prevent you from going down these roads. It's just being
Be
smart.
mindful. Yes.
It goes back to like, talk to everybody and give examples. And that's why, what you've organized today is so important, because if you talk to other communicators, that's how I've done my job. I just talk to other communicators. So ones that are way more highly regulated industries, much bigger companies. And when they tell me how they did it, I go back to my organization. I'm like, if they did it and they're way more regulated, we can do it too. But we just have to be mindful of these steps that we have to take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing that tip. And I think as well with a lot of these like types of conversations with like everything's great and easy to do,
Yeah.
let's do this, let's do that. So I think it's important to share some like really key considerations and factors. Becca, specifically then when I gave you my fun fact, you were aggressively nodding. And I feel like obviously you've got a big team there, and I know they spend a lot of their time out and about. I assume user generated content has been a huge part of what you've been doing and with your team at JD Group.
Yeah, I mean, again, our employees have the pulse on everything, and they're the reason we have anything, right? And so I think that we have a document or a publication internally that we call People First, because our people are first, right? No matter what it is that we do, it always comes back to them. And so whatever we can do to feature them, highlight them, showcase them, that's our goal, right? Because I mean, some of us have the privilege to be on a call like this and to do a lot of other things, but I don't get to do things like this unless I have the people who are backing me and supporting me. And so I think it's just so critical to remember like who you're doing your job for. You're first, no matter what type of PR or communications you work in, your first public relations are your employees 100% of the time.
Yeah, really, really good mantra, I think, and ethos to sort of live by as a team. Absolutely. I know we've just spoke about user generated content and sort of storytelling, and we've kind of like touched on leaders, and obviously I gave my fun fact about employee content being more powerful, but I do want to touch on the leadership point and really getting leaders involved. And I know we've sort of spoken about translating communications and getting the tone right, but I want to understand if any of you have got some advice for the listeners today about how do you make sure leaders are sort of like leading with empathy in their communication, rather than it feeling official communication, rather than it feeling cold, rather than it feeling corporate. And maybe it not just be in their comms, but them as leaders. How are you inspiring them to be more sort of empathetic? Because I think that's a huge sort of contributing factor, right, is for people on the other end of it feeling that it's an authentic, trustworthy leader and communicator. Patrick, can I start with you?
I think for me, I probably, being in a channels and content role at EasyJet now, spend a little bit less time with the exec team at EasyJet than I did in other roles. But I think key for me is spending a lot of time to really understand them.
Right.
It's hard to help someone to
don't know their character,
get across their authentic self if you're not clear on who that person is. You have to absolutely have to get to know them. So I think that for me, spend as much time with the person as you can. Get in, make sure you're in the room or you're following them around on site visits and what have you, and really understand who they are and what makes them tick. I think the other thing is find the opportunities for them to do some of the stuff themselves.
Yeah.
Like, these are very competent people. They don't need a lot of hand-holding. Guidance, but not too much guidance. I think that's a huge opportunity to kind of just encourage leaders to have that bit of agency to think that they can do it themselves. Of course, we're going through the motions of implementing Blink in EasyJet, the lounge we're calling it, and one of the big pieces as part of that is helping our leaders to understand how they can do it themselves.
Yes.
A huge part of the project is about democratization of communication, letting leaders lead and own the narrative.
Yeah, and I love that you're saying that we're not hand holding, because I think traditionally as well, comms have fallen into that stereotype type of leaders like, oh, I'll go through the comms team can do it for me. Whereas I think guidance is key. You want to empower those people, and knowing their authentic selves will really help within that.
Yeah.
Tiffin, how about you? Well, obviously with your experience, I bet you've worked with all sorts of characters in the leadership team. How do you make sure that they really show up authentically and communicate with empathy?
Patrick said it. It has to go back on them. When you're in the C-suite as a communicator, really you're focused on the CEO. That is your job. And then your job is the leadership. And then your job is the entire company. So the only way to achieve that mandate is to empower C-suite and all of the other managers in the company. They have to tailor it. They have to, they know they know their teams better than anybody else. So you can't just create, one-stop shopping communications. It's impossible. Now, I know companies that have invested in massive teams, but that's other industries that make more money than retail. So Patrick said it perfectly. I mean, it's just like you have to educate everyone. The CEO is going to have this level of messaging. And then that CEO's direct reports have to have a different set of messaging, and it has to be tailored, and it's their responsibility to do it. And I've actually advocated that the communications is actually part of their job description. So they're actually, they're accountable for their communications. And I only know that from other industries that have put communications, big C, in leaders and manager level, that's actually why they're getting paid more money, because they have to take the time to communicate to their teams.
Yeah, that's powerful as well. Becca, how about you from the group perspective? I know you've got obviously more like regional and brand, all different heads of the brands as well as at group level. So you've got very complex leadership teams to navigate.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is just reminding your leadership team that they're human. I think it's so easy for that group, whatever, leadership level you want to talk to, is to forget that behind this facade of, not even a facade, but behind this front that they put up of like,
well, I'm an stereotype, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm a leader. I have to act a certain way. I have to be a certain way. I can only be seen by our employees as this. And it's like, well, no, like, again, the times are changing. Like, you don't have, in some industries, especially ours, you don't have to come in with a tie so tight that like you can't concentrate, right? Like, I think, again, we're really lucky in the industry that we work in that our CEO walks around in sneakers, like, like so do all of our leaders. And I think based on engagement surveys, not just with us, but I think just globally, employees want to see people. They want to know maybe a little bit more about their CEO or about their, their senior vice president. They just want to be able to connect. Yeah, there's a careful line there. They're your leader. They're the ones who are pushing the company forward. And many cases, some of us are publicly traded. Like there is this ability of making sure that you have this seniority. But how do you break that down though, so that people can see like, well, yeah, they're just a regular guy or person. I think we had a really great example of one of our senior retail leaders. A couple of weeks ago, we had worked on a project together where we had to do a video. And so he's seen as like very professional. He's very well respected. He's very serious and connected, to the business. And so we posted this video out. Well, I'm an American in a very English business. And so the leader I was working with is Scottish. And so I say his name a little bit differently with like a different accent. And so everyone kept making fun of saying, oh my gosh, she's saying his name wrong. But he came in and shared with everyone else. And he said, oh, that's my stage name now, when I call him.
Oh.
And everyone in the retail environment were reacting, and they were saying, wait a second, like he's funny, like he's a hilarious guy, like he's not just all business, all this.
Yeah. It has a personality.
Exactly. That's as simple as it is reminding them, but then also your team of like, these are just humans. At the end of the day, we all put our shoes on, we all come to work. We're just people. And I think they just sometimes forget that.
And it just sounds so simple, doesn't it? And all of us here are thinking, yeah, duh, but it does need to be, sent as a reminder. And Hadley there in the comments says they're human and they're communicating with humans. Preach. It's so true, but it's just so basic, isn't it? I agree wholeheartedly. So my last theme, and I'm going to ask for one comment from all of you because we're running out of time and we've got a few questions as well. This will be available on demand if anybody needs to drop on the hour. I understand that we've got some good questions to get to. But lastly, it's just about tools, tech. We've spoken a lot about different ideas, channels, content ideas and platforms. So firstly, a quick poll for the audience. I'd love to know right now, what is your main method of communicating with your workforce? And to the panel, we've got more tools than ever before. Patrick, you're just saying you're about to launch a new app, you're implementing Blink. How are we using these tools to simplify people's work lives when there is a lot of noise? So to all of our panelists here, just in terms of tools, I bet you could name on multiple fingers all the different platforms and tools that you've got. What's your approach here to trying to help simplify somebody's work life from a tech perspective? Patrick.
You just have to understand what they need. It comes back to the interior design masters analogy again. Understand what they need and strip everything away. I mean, you know, we're looking at moving away from a SharePoint site that has 126 SharePoint sites associated with it, 7 million documents. Can't wait to get stuck into that. So, wow. And we're moving to something where we're focusing on what are the tools that our people use every day, and what knowledge and services do we as a business provide to those people, and how can we structure our knowledge and information in a way that helps them to get stuff done so that they can get on with delighting customers on the ground and in the air.
Yeah. Lauren is commenting on your content, consolidation as fun times.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Becca, how about you? What's your recommendation when there's like lots of tools and technology going on?
Yeah, I just think it depends on the message, right? I think prioritizing what type of message is it, and then where's the best vehicle going to be. Is in some cases an email more appropriate? Great, use that and just use that. Is a text a good thing? Do you have to reach a bunch of people? Is it your intranet site? I think it's just kind of prioritizing what is your end goal and then making sure that it backs that up, because it could be different every day. Sometimes you may need to put it on every platform because it's that big of a deal, but just kind of understanding what's your end goal and then making sure that all of your stakeholders understand the why you're choosing that tool and that platform.
Thank you. I agree. And Tiffin, lastly, in terms of that consolidation of tools and noise, what's your recommendation to tackle that?
I mean, obviously it goes back to measurement. We're in an era that you actually can measure. I started my career where you couldn't measure. So, but we also have to commit to multiple platforms, and not just platforms, but ways of communicating. And I still stand behind word of mouth is still the strongest. So when we say platforms, I actually include just word, like the voice. So that's town halls, that's manager meetings, and you just have to measure it, and you have to see what's resonating and what's not. I don't think you have to be on literally everything, but you do need to at least to pick 3 or 4. We're not in a world where you're on 1 or 2. And that's where I push back on legal and finance as well, is we got to be communicating in multiple ways for it to resonate.
Oh, totally. And I think it's, you've also...
I measure it through the technology. Yeah. I mean, I just saw a chat. You measure it because now we have platforms where you can see who clicked on it.
Yes.
Even open it. I mean, like, to me, open work. I mean, to me, like, that counts. If it's been opened and they didn't click on it, it still counts. But we are in a world where it's measured now.
Absolutely. I feel like you've also had a very similar answer, but in your own worlds with your own hats on. So I think that just shows, the perspective we've got on the panel today. We're going to come to the end of our actual discussions. I'm conscious of time. We've got quite a few questions in the chat, so I'm just going to pick out a few here for our panelists. And I've got one more forced fun question. Oh my God. And then we'll wrap up for the day. So let's have a look. Jenny has asked, what would you say is best? Little and often communications, i.e. when the updates come up, or stick to regular cadence and sort of those official roundups? Patrick, what's your take on that one?
Know your audience. Listen to your audience and respond to that. If they like little and often, give them little and often. If they don't, and they want the one big update with the what, so what, now what, give them that. But know your audience and listen and understand their needs.
That's a good one. Thank you. Becca, I've got one for you here, which I think will be a good one based on, the sheer size of the workforce you're working with. Is any tips for reaching deskless workers?
Oh, yeah.
That's from Laurel.
Yeah, it's something we deal with all the time, and something we're hopeful to be able to have like a really big solve for here really soon. But I think again, it's knowing your audience. Sometimes we have to text them. Sometimes we are really fortunate in a lot of our stores that we have digital screens. We have the ability to do that. It's giving your senior leaders in those spaces talking points to be able to push it down to them. So all of our stores have daily stand-ups. I think a huge piece too is we have distribution center employees. And so being able to reach them at certain times. So it really just depends on the message and on the day. But even to how are you traveling? Are you able to travel to those and maybe even empower those leaders who have that ability? So I think it's a couple of different ways. But like I said, we're cooking up a few things here soon that'll be really, really exciting that we'll be able to reach them. So
Awesome. Thank you, Becca. And Tiffin, this question's for you. This is from Gian. She said, love the points around listening to employees. How do we deal with survey fatigue? And how do we show we're really listening to employee feedback when we can't act on all of the feedback?
I'm actually very passionate about this. HR teams actually get squirrely about surveys and survey fatigue. And I actually think it's hysterical because we live in a world with consistent ask your feedback, and it's not just at the company, it's anything that you do on any platform. So I'm a big believer in always asking. Like Patrick said, the results will come in as they do. And then I've had 3 companies where we were very diligent about communicating what did come back on the survey. We identified what was executable. We were also really good about making time to talk about those projects because most of them are long term. So it's hard to talk about long term projects. They're just not going to happen in 6 months.
Yeah.
So I was just, again, I was a press person, by trade. When I learned internal comms, I really used my press communications where you can't mess with press. I mean, when you're telling them, that's finite. So I like to take that acumen to internal comms, even if you have to talk about that journey, which I think you even said earlier. You know what I mean? Like some things are just a journey and you just have to articulate that. But I think surveys are huge. And I've never experienced anyone that is mad that they've been surveyed too much because unless it's mandated, they just don't take it. So what's the big deal?
Yeah, definitely. And Tiffin, I feel like, well, actually all of you, I feel like you could have your own podcast episode on your topics. I can really tell where all of your passions lie. Right, well, we're going to wrap up. I'm very conscious of time. So last golden nugget, please. I want your one piece of advice after today's session for people listening. Becca, yours first.
I think I said it a couple times, right message, right place, right time. If you don't have those kind of core things, I mean, what are you communicating about? Is it going to land? I think just making sure that you know that you're able to deliver that message is just the most critical thing. And that's our role, right? That's at the end of the day, that's why they pay us and they want to make sure that we're making it as concise at the right time as possible. So that would be my biggest reminder.
Thank you. Tiffin, your golden nugget to leave us with?
Big C. That's it. You're big C. You're not little C. That should help you navigate through the organization.
Love it. I've really felt like we've got that energy from you today. Thank you. Patrick, your golden nugget?
It's got to be know your audience.
Yeah. 3 absolutely solid golden nuggets to end us with. But I did promise some force fun. So everyone's like, oh, what is it? We are building an internal comms survival playlist for the year. Everybody we meet at events, who speak on our podcast, who come to our live webinars. I asked them to submit a track to go onto this playlist because hell, we all need a hype playlist. So if anybody here today wants to add a track, please do. We've already got some absolute crackers on there. But I've asked our speakers to bring a track that they would add. So Tiffin, you've become slightly obsessed with this, but you can only pick one. So which track are you adding to the playlist?
Well, I'm a T-Pain girl, so I did one at a time. I never thought about all my songs from a communications point of view. So literally all day, that's all I'm doing now. I'm listening to all my favorite songs if I was a comms person. So I'm loving this.
It's so good. Tiffin, when I asked her recently, she's like, "Could I have a song that has an F-bomb?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? Sometimes you need it."
That's all my songs.
Love it. Patrick, what's yours?
I promised I wouldn't promo EasyJet too much, but we are the the airline partner for for the Eurovision. So it would have to be Euphoria by Loreen.
Oh my gosh, no.
Cracker.
It is a cracker. That
Yeah.
definitely will make it on.
I just went to the practice one in Amsterdam, by the way,
Oh, jealous.
like 2 weeks ago or whatever it was.
Very cool. And Becca, I mean, surely, yours has got to be some sort of Swiftie number because, shameless Swiftie, right?
Yes, as the resident millennial on this call and the representation that she really doesn't need, but I, as a true Swiftie, would have to say ready for it from her Reputation album. The bass is good, and I think at all times we must always be ready for whatever it could be. So let the games begin.
Oh, so
I
good.
love that. That's
So
good.
like a true Swiftie. There's also been some great suggestions in the chat. Thank you so much. And obviously we've got a link here or a QR code. I would love some more tracks on the playlist from this community as well. So dive in. But that's it for today. I just wanted to let you know what's coming up next from a Blink perspective. So we've got another live event next month. This is around no email, no problem. A lot of people have got a vast front line, and connecting and reaching them, engaging with them without email is challenging. So how do you connect with people that are disconnected from that perspective? So we've got a live webinar. Head on over to our website if you'd like to sign up. Would love to see you again. But that concludes today. Obviously, we've got a poll. Let us know what you thought of today. But Becca, Tiffin from Venice, thank you. Patrick live in the studio. I've had a great time. I've had a lot of coffee. I hope you can probably tell I'm extremely hyper, but I've loved it. I hope you have all too. And hopefully you'll see you all soon, and take care, everyone. Bye, Becca, Tiffin. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.